Did 50 Cent just turn a rap beef into a real estate takeover? And did Jim Jones really wake up thinking he was walking into his studio, only to find out the locks had changed and the cameras were rolling? Because if what's trending online is even half true, this isn't just another G-Unit versus Dipset throwback feud. This is corporate warfare with Wi-Fi passwords involved. When Jim Jones allegedly took shots at G-Unit's legacy, nobody expected the response to come through lease agreements, partnership deals, and security footage instead of diss tracks. But we're talking about 50 Cent, the same mastermind who once turned rap beef into a business model and made trolling look like a Harvard case study. So what really happened behind the scenes? Did 50's partners quietly align with landlords? Was there a power play brewing while everyone was busy arguing on Instagram? And why are insiders whispering that this wasn't retaliation? It was premeditated. Tonight, we're breaking down the timeline, the tension, and the truth behind the chaos. Because if this is what hip-hop beef looks like in 2026, nobody's safe. Not even inside their own studio. If you thought rap beef was just bars, Instagram posts, and a few subtle digs, think again. This isn't your casual Twitter squabble or a classic diss track war. No, this is something much bigger. This is 50 Cent orchestrating what might be the most ruthless, meticulously calculated takedown of Jim Jones in hip-hop history. And it's happening right in front of everyone's eyes. Studio doors changed, security footage leaked, lease documents posted, and social media on fire. And it all allegedly started because someone dared to question the ethics of a documentary. You read that right. One offhand conversation, one controversial opinion on a podcast, and suddenly the gloves were off. Imagine walking into your own creative space, the studio where you've built years of legacy, and finding that the locks don't recognize you anymore. The lights are off, electricity cut, and cameras silently recording your every move. That's exactly what the footage online suggests happened when Jim Jones allegedly attempted to enter what he thought was his own space. But here's the kicker. This wasn't some random leak by a disgruntled ex-employee. This was calculated. This was strategy. And the mastermind behind it? The same man who has spent decades turning conflict into content and beef into business. 50 Cent. The story, and if you trace it back, doesn't start in 2026. This is decades in the making. Think 2007, the height of G-Unit versus Dipset tension. Rivalries brewing, loyalty tested, crews splitting, and ambitions clashing. At that time, Jim Jones was hungry for a moment, a breakout, a chance to step out of the shadows and finally taste solo recognition. 50 Cent knew it. That infamous G-Unit concert invitation? Strategic genius. Jones and his crew were playing on stage at a G-Unit show. For the casual fan, it was a performance. For 50, it was chess. Every move calculated, every reaction studied, every ego examined. And ever since, these two men have been engaged in a game that's as much psychological warfare as it is music. Fast forward to December 2025. Jim Jones sits down with his podcast co-hosts, including Mino Fabulous, Dave East, and others. Here they start talking documentaries. What's fair, what's exploitative, what's petty. It sounds harmless, maybe even intellectual. But when the conversation veers toward the notion of making someone look bad without their approval, tempers flare. Because right at that moment, 50 Cent had just released a Netflix documentary series featuring allegations and behind-the-scenes insights that some saw as weaponized. And suddenly, words on a podcast become perceived threats. Opinions transform into personal attacks. You can almost see the dominoes falling in real time. A casual critique, misinterpreted as disrespect, setting off a chain reaction of epic proportions. What followed next can only be described as high-level trolling meets corporate manipulation. Instead of jumping straight to social media insults or diss tracks, 50 Cent allegedly went straight for the power move. The landlord of Jim Jones's studio, supposedly frustrated by murky lease agreements, was suddenly on his side. Suddenly, partnership agreements, content ownership stakes, and unpaid bills became weapons. Security cameras, used, audio leaks, posted, public humiliation, executed with surgical precision. And the world watched. Everyone watching thinking, how is this happening? And how is it so brutally efficient? Now let's take a moment to break down the mechanics of this alleged operation. Jim Jones and his co-hosts are in the studio, unaware that the electricity might be cut, that their access could be revoked, that their landlord might secretly be partnering with someone with more clout, more money, and more experience manipulating public perception. And then comes the footage, time-stamped, crystal clear, doors locked, Jones struggling, every motion documented. And if you thought the story would end there, think again. Social media explodes, comments pouring in like wildfire, some mocking his struggle with the door, some questioning financial mismanagement, and some speculating, just speculating, about how 50 Cent might have secured access to the building's entire surveillance system. Big Brother energy? Absolutely. But if anyone could pull it off and make it look like art, it's him. The irony here is hard to miss. The same men critiquing 50 Cent's documentary ethics are suddenly being called out for their own inability to keep a studio running smoothly. Allegedly. According to leaked audio clips, the landlord described years of complicated agreements, build-out demands, and opaque earnings reports that never materialized. Half the media content the landlord claimed belonged to him. Yet Jones reportedly refused to disclose numbers or finalize the deal. At that moment, financial leverage became a tool of narrative warfare. And when you combine that with the timing, podcast critiques, holiday season, social media attention, it's like the universe aligned for maximum humiliation. Public reactions were instantaneous. Social media users dissected every frame, every clip, every word. From Dipset to set, some joked. Others called the entire crew lobby boys. And of course, memes spread faster than the story itself, mocking the cold studio, the door struggles, and even clothing choices. In the court of public opinion, visuals often trump words, and every misstep gets magnified tenfold. For Jones, suddenly his image, built over decades, was being questioned not for his music but for his studio access, financial savvy, and the optics of being caught in a locked hallway. But here's where it gets really fascinating. Jones didn't respond with anger or insults. Instead, he allegedly turned to humor, posting martial arts videos, chopping wood, and calling himself Kung Fu Jim. A calculated deflection, showing the audience. I am unbothered. I am still relevant. And in the world of viral content, sometimes perception is everything. The narrative flips. Humiliation becomes entertainment, and the viewer engagement skyrockets. It's a classic counter-move. Instead of giving the troll what he wants, raw, emotional reaction, Jones subtly positions himself as above it all, a master of narrative control in his own right. And yet, the stakes weren't just social. Reports suggested that by February 2026, unpaid bills allegedly amounted to anywhere between $80,000 and $180,000, with some sources pushing the figure to $250,000. Even if the exact number remains unverified, the story paints a dire financial picture. A studio under construction, creators working in freezing conditions, partnership stakes up for grabs, and a rival mogul allegedly controlling the narrative and infrastructure. For anyone watching closely, it's almost cinematic. You can picture the montage: doors, cameras, LED lights, social media notifications blowing up in real time. Now, let's rewind briefly to the historical context. Why does this matter beyond immediate studio drama? Because it's a continuation of nearly 2 decades of tension between G-Unit and Dipset, between 50 Cent and Jim Jones. Every action has echoes of past betrayals, strategic plays, and psychological gambits. Remember that 2007 concert? That wedge between Jones and Cam'ron? That wasn't a one-off. That was the blueprint for influence and manipulation. And now, in 2026, the blueprint is allegedly being executed with the precision of a chess grandmaster. Every door locked, every camera rolling, every social media post calculated. From the outside, it looks chaotic. But insiders, if we trust anonymous whispers and speculative reporting, might call it methodical. Every leak, every post, every clip was designed to maximize embarrassment while maintaining plausible deniability. 50 Cent, in this scenario, never touches the fire. He simply fans the flames, watches the smoke, and lets the audience interpret the devastation. For fans, commentators, and casual observers, it's pure spectacle. And in a world obsessed with drama, attention, and virality, it doesn't matter if it's ethical or petty. It matters that it works. By now, Jim Jones is navigating multiple fronts, dealing with alleged financial obligations, responding to public scrutiny, maintaining credibility with his creators, and keeping momentum on his content empire. Meanwhile, 50 Cent's alleged strategy continues to dominate headlines, comment sections, and memes. And here's the twist that keeps analysts, fans, and internet detectives glued. Nobody knows for sure if the landlord partnership, the security footage access, and the posted financial demands were entirely organic, partially exaggerated, or fully orchestrated. That uncertainty is exactly what keeps engagement high and rumors swirling. To say things escalated quickly would be an understatement. By the time February 2026 rolled around, what started as a casual podcast critique had transformed into a full-blown spectacle of alleged financial warfare, social media humiliation, and hip-hop theater. Security footage surfaced online, time-stamped and undeniable, showing Jim Jones struggling outside his own studio. The lights cut, the locks changed, and cameras silently documented every frustrated kick at doors. If you thought Instagram beef was chaotic before, this was a new level of theater, the kind that could be studied in business schools as a case of psychological leverage meeting viral content. And the kicker? 50 Cent allegedly didn't need to touch a finger. The scene unfolded like a perfectly directed film. Tension, humiliation, and audience engagement all in one. The anonymous sources reportedly close to the studio claim that the landlord, now allegedly aligned with 50 Cent, offered access to the building's entire security feed. Suddenly, every movement of Jim Jones and his co-hosts became public property. Not just public property, but content. Clips of Jones shivering in the cold studio, hunched over frozen equipment, and struggling with the doors became the internet's latest obsession. The social media commentary ranged from mocking to morbidly fascinated. "Super thug grandpa doesn't even know how to kick a door," one user posted. Another quipped, "From Dipset to set." Every shared clip, every retweet, every meme amplified the embarrassment. And behind it all, a meticulously constructed narrative allegedly designed to highlight a financial imbalance, a mismanaged studio, and the power of perception in modern hip-hop. Reports also began surfacing, purportedly leaked from sources close to the landlord, alleging staggering numbers. Unpaid bills for the studio? Anywhere from $80,000 to $180,000, with some pushing the figure closer to $250,000. Allegedly, half of the media content being produced at the studio technically belonged to the landlord, and Jones allegedly refused to provide transparency on earnings. Now, consider that alongside the security footage. Suddenly, the internet isn't just watching a locked studio struggle. It's witnessing a financial and creative empire under siege, with a rival mogul seemingly holding all the cards. Every detail of the story added layers of humiliation, tension, and high-stakes intrigue. The co-hosts, including Mino Fabulous, Dave East, and Jules Santana, were allegedly caught in the storm as well. While some posts suggest personal insults were exchanged, the overarching narrative was one of strategic embarrassment rather than street-level confrontation. Memes flooded Instagram and X. Screenshots circulated on YouTube channels, and the public began dissecting every frame of the footage like it was court evidence. The common theme? A mix of disbelief and amusement at how a debate about documentaries spiraled into what many called the most sophisticated trolling operation in modern hip-hop. According to a fake investigative leak from insider sources, there were allegedly secret agreements in place that allowed 50 Cent to act almost like an invisible puppeteer. Not only did he allegedly coordinate with the landlord to secure control over the physical property, but he also reportedly had access to key partnership agreements, media ownership stakes, and even a say in content distribution. In short, the same man whose career was built on transforming conflict into content was now allegedly controlling both the narrative and the stage. And the star of the show was scrambling to respond. Public reactions, unsurprisingly, were explosive. Comment sections lit up with sarcastic humor and biting observations. Some mocked Jones directly, from studio king to hallway struggler in 30 seconds. Others speculated about his financial acumen, questioning how a man of his stature could allegedly fall behind on studio payments while criticizing others. Meanwhile, fans of 50 Cent framed the entire ordeal as poetic justice, a form of karmic retribution delivered with style, precision, and zero physical confrontation. And in the middle of it all, content creators and commentary channels had a field day, breaking down every clip frame by frame, analyzing body language, clothing choices, and even the temperature in the allegedly freezing studio. And yet, Jones allegedly refused to play the victim. Instead, he reportedly pivoted with humor and creativity. Martial arts videos, construction walkthroughs, and playful nods to the chaos became his tools of narrative control. He turned humiliation into engagement, embarrassment into content, and an alleged crisis into a showcase of resilience. Analysts on social media called it a brilliant counter-strategy. When your opponent thrives on your emotional reaction, the best move is calm, collected deflection. And if Jones's posts were any indication, he knew this. And his brand became not about the doors that wouldn't open, the lights that were off, or the financial disputes. It became about creativity, endurance, and turning obstacles into attention. The fallout, however, extended beyond social media theatrics. Allegedly, behind closed doors, financial and legal pressures mounted. Leaked sources suggested potential probes into the partnership agreements, media ownership disputes, and alleged breaches of contract. Even if none of these investigations were formalized, the threat of scrutiny added tension to the already combustible mix. Every public humiliation clip, every meme, every caption became a potential talking point in a broader narrative of accountability, mismanagement, and rivalry escalation. Meanwhile, the historical context cannot be overstated. The tension between G-Unit and Dipset isn't new. It stretches back decades, spanning concert betrayals, public disses, and strategic plays that were equal parts psychological warfare and music industry maneuvering. Every interaction between 50 Cent and Jim Jones carries the weight of history, the shadows of old disputes, and the unspoken calculations of reputation management. In many ways, the alleged studio incident is a continuation of a storyline that has been building since the early 2000s, where every word, every post, and every move is analyzed for hidden meaning, advantage, or opportunity. Some observers even highlighted the alleged strategic genius behind 50 Cent's approach. Rather than engaging physically or emotionally, he reportedly leveraged contracts, partnerships, and property rights to exert influence. And instead of diss tracks, he allegedly posted legal documents. Instead of public confrontations, he allegedly controlled the environment and narrative. And in doing so, he allegedly demonstrated a blueprint for modern celebrity feuds. Transform every conflict into content, every perceived slight into leverage, and every reaction into audience engagement. All of this culminated in what could only be described as a surreal spectacle: a locked studio, a viral humiliation, financial stakes looming, historical rivalries resurfacing, and social media exploding in real time. Analysts on commentary channels dubbed it the modern rap chessboard, where pawns, rooks, and bishops are replaced by contracts, cameras, and Instagram captions. Fans debated endlessly about who had the upper hand, while memes, clips, and posts multiplied faster than anyone could keep up. And as the dust settled for the day, it became clear that this wasn't just a feud. It was a masterclass in public perception, digital warfare, and the monetization of conflict. Part of what made the alleged incident so compelling is the blend of personal and professional stakes. On one hand, Jim Jones had to manage creators, studio logistics, and financial obligations. On the other, he faced the public eye and the strategic maneuvers of an opponent who has spent decades perfecting the art of controlled chaos. The juxtaposition made every video clip, every post, and every leak feel like a meticulously orchestrated episode in a serialized drama that the internet could binge in real time. By the end of this phase, rumors suggested that temporary financial settlements might have been made to keep the studio operational. Allegedly, wiring hundreds of thousands of dollars allowed Jones to regain a measure of control. But the social media humiliation, the viral clips, the memes, the commentary, couldn't be reversed. Even if the numbers were settled, the narrative had already been set. 50 Cent allegedly won the first round without lifting a finger, relying purely on strategy, alliances, and public spectacle. As February bled into late winter, the drama surrounding Jim Jones and 50 Cent escalated beyond social media, beyond viral clips, and into what some commentators called a live-action masterclass in hip-hop power dynamics. The streets were talking, the comment sections were in flames, and even casual observers couldn't help but marvel at the spectacle. By now, the eviction footage had gone viral, financial rumors were circulating with reckless abandon, and the historical subtext between Dipset and G-Unit added layers that no casual audience member could fully unpack in one sitting. Reports from insider sources suggested that Jones had finally wired the alleged hundreds of thousands owed to the landlord, attempting to settle the financial dispute and reclaim control of his studio. But by this point, the damage to his public image was already done. On X, memes still circulated of Jones struggling with the doors, of jackets zipped over hoodies, shivering, with captions reading things like, "Cold studio, colder moves." Commentary channels were relentless, breaking down every inch of the footage, every body language cue, and every moment of apparent hesitation as if analyzing the steps of a courtroom trial. "This isn't just an eviction, it's digital crucifixion," one YouTube host quipped. The irony: Jones had built the studio as a hub for creators, a space to elevate emerging talent. And now that same space had become a stage for his own humiliation, orchestrated by a rival who seemingly thrived on controlling perception. The strategic genius behind 50 Cent's moves became even more apparent when leaks alleged that he now had partial ownership of not just the physical property, but also the media content produced within it. According to these so-called sources, this partnership arrangement allowed him to legally and publicly mock Jones, release eviction footage, and assert a narrative dominance that no diss track or street-level confrontation could have matched. Some fans called it next-level chess, others dubbed it hip-hop puppet theater. What is undeniable, whether factual or exaggerated for dramatic effect, is that 50 Cent had allegedly leveraged every tool at his disposal: financial leverage, media control, alliances with landlords, and historical knowledge of rivalries dating back to 2007. And yet, Jim Jones allegedly refused to crumble. Instead, he leaned into the chaos with a mixture of humor, creativity, and deflection. Martial arts videos emerged online, showing Jones chopping wood, performing precision kicks, and demonstrating techniques that could only be described as Kung Fu Jim. The background featured posters, unfinished construction, and a studio in progress, effectively turning humiliation into marketing for his personal brand. Jones framed the chaos as a story of resilience, resourcefulness, and entrepreneurial spirit. Commentary channels were quick to note that in refusing to show emotional defeat, he potentially deprived 50 Cent of the ultimate prize, a viral reaction fueled by frustration. "He's saying, 'Y'all got jokes, but I'm still building,'" one analyst noted. In other words, the script of humiliation had been flipped into a promotional tool for creativity. Meanwhile, the internet's appetite for scandal only grew. Alleged leaked phone calls, supposed financial documents, and fake insider quotes were dissected and shared across platforms. Rumors swirled that Cameron, Jones's former Dipset ally, had piled on, mocking financial struggles and offering to send heating money via digital transfers. Mino Fabulous and Dave East were reportedly caught in the crossfire, their prior comments from the original podcast recontextualized in the glare of social media scrutiny. Fans debated endlessly. Was Jones being targeted unfairly, or had he underestimated 50 Cent's strategic patience? The public verdict was mixed, but the engagement metrics told a single story. Eyeballs were glued, and every clip, every caption, every meme added layers to the narrative of rivalry, ingenuity, and modern celebrity warfare. Adding even more fuel, insiders claimed that negotiations over the studio's content rights were ongoing. Allegedly, 50 Cent had positioned himself as a partner with veto power over major creative decisions, and while Jones struggled to maintain autonomy over his own media empire. Sources allegedly familiar with the situation claimed that conversations between the two camps had been tense, filled with subtle threats, passive-aggressive offers, and veiled ultimatums. Every move on social media, every public post, became part of a larger negotiation, or at least the perception of one, highlighting how power in modern hip-hop extends far beyond lyrical skill. Legal experts were not far behind in offering commentary. Even if the eviction itself was legally solid, speculation arose about intellectual property, media ownership, and the legality of posting security footage online. Hypothetical lawsuits, financial probes, and civil disputes were debated in forums and comment sections, each scenario dripping with potential for drama. But could Jones sue for public humiliation? Could 50 Cent be liable for broadcasting images of a private studio? Each possibility added suspense, uncertainty, and a touch of dark humor for the audience watching from the comfort of their phones. Then there was the historical angle. 50 Cent and Jim Jones share a rivalry that dates back nearly 2 decades, rooted in the early 2000s conflicts between G-Unit and Dipset. Each feud, each insult, and each perceived betrayal carried the weight of that history. Allegedly, 50 Cent exploited Jones's hunger for recognition, his desire for solo success, and his historical insecurities regarding crew loyalty. From strategic concert appearances to public dissies, every move was calculated to provoke, observe, and exploit. What we saw in 2026, the eviction footage, financial leverage, and social media humiliation, could be considered the ultimate evolution of that playbook. Psychological warfare, media manipulation, and viral storytelling rolled into one. Some reports claimed that this entire sequence of events was being studied in industry circles as a blueprint for conflict monetization. Analysts noted that in every major feud, 50 Cent seemed to transform a negative situation into a business opportunity. Ja Rule and Murder Inc., Rick Ross, Floyd Mayweather, Tia Marie, the pattern repeated. Each conflict produced content, generated engagement, and expanded influence, all while minimizing personal risk. The Jim Jones saga allegedly represents the apex of this methodology. Eviction footage, viral humiliation, and strategic commentary replacing diss tracks, physical confrontations, or raw emotion. Meanwhile, Jim Jones allegedly doubled down on framing the narrative positively. Studio walkthroughs highlighted construction, emerging creators, and a vision for a multi-purpose media hub. Commentary channels noted the brilliance of reframing the crisis into a community-building story. Every moment of adversity was repurposed into a marketing opportunity. In a world where social perception is often more influential than actual financial stability, Jones's moves illustrated a keen understanding of audience engagement, virality, and brand control, even in the shadow of an opponent known for controlling narratives with ruthless efficiency. As the weeks went on, the feud remained unresolved but intensely watched. Every post, every clip, every rumor became fuel for a public spectacle, blurring the line between reality and performance. A social media debate raged on, with some fans siding with Jones, praising resilience and creativity, while others cheered 50 Cent's tactical brilliance, applauding the methodical humiliation and viral dominance. In the middle of this chaos, the core lesson became clear. Perception is power, and in the modern era of hip-hop, power is often measured not in physical force but in digital reach, strategic alliances, and narrative control. And as the story continued to unfold, commentary channels, fan accounts, and journalists speculated wildly about the next move. Would Jones reclaim full control of his media hub? Would 50 Cent leverage his apparent property and media stake to further humiliate or monetize the situation? Could Cameron, Mino, or Dave East intervene, either to defend their friend or to capitalize on the spectacle? Yet every possibility seemed plausible, and the audience remained hooked. The story was not just a feud, it was a serialized drama, a social media chessboard, and a cautionary tale of ambition, strategy, and public perception. Ultimately, the Jim Jones versus 50 Cent saga exemplifies the collision of power, history, and modern celebrity culture. A simple debate about documentaries spiraled into eviction footage, financial rumors, viral humiliation, and strategic counter-moves. Every actor, from Jones to co-hosts, from landlords to rival moguls, played a role in a story that is part reality, part performance, and entirely viral. And while legal, financial, and ethical questions linger, the entertainment value is undeniable. The Internet, for better or worse, had front-row seats to a drama decades in the making, delivered with a mix of suspense, humor, and ruthless strategy. As we draw this chapter to a close, one question hangs in the air like a lingering Instagram story. Did 50 Cent truly dominate the narrative, or did Jim Jones cleverly turn adversity into a marketing masterstroke? The answer may depend on whom you ask, fans, analysts, or the viral algorithms themselves. What is certain is that this feud, decades in the making, has added another unforgettable episode to hip-hop's ongoing saga of rivalry, strategy, and spectacle. And as both men continue to maneuver, the public watches, comments, memes, and debates endlessly, knowing that in the world of modern celebrity feuds, perception is power, and virality is victory. So now the real question hits. Who really won this round? Was it 50 Cent flexing his landlord power, his media leverage, decades of strategic ruthlessness? Or was it Jim Jones, turning public humiliation into free promotion, building a creator hub, and showing the world that resilience can sometimes outshine tactical domination? Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between, a battle where both men walked away with wins and losses, victories and viral scars. And let's be honest, this is exactly the kind of story that keeps you scrolling, refreshing, and hitting replay on clips. But now, we want to hear from you. Who do you side with in this saga? The mastermind who controls perception with precision, or the underdog who turns chaos into opportunity? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this debate is far from over. If you want more deep dives, behind-the-scenes exposes, and stories the mainstream won't touch, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and ring the bell. We're just getting started, and trust us, the next chapter is going to be even crazier. Stay tuned, because in hip-hop, in power plays, and in social media feuds, nothing is ever really finished.